Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Yende. When does a joke stop being harmless humor and start becoming an ethical problem? That question is at the heart of a troubling controversy, and it has opened up a much wider national debate. A medical student, Sajal Pawar, from a prestigious institution appeared in a comedy show interaction where remarks were made about cadavers used in medical education. The clip went viral. Doctors were outraged. Students were divided. The public reacted strongly. The institution launched an inquiry. An apology followed. But the real issue goes far beyond one viral moment. How does a future doctor come to see a body donated for medical education as material for public comedy? And what does that reveal about medical training, social media culture, dark humor, and the shifting boundaries of ethics? Today, we're going to examine this carefully, not with anger, mob justice, or character assassination, but through four important lenses: neuroscience, psychology, ethics, and medical professionalism. First, we'll look at the special place of the cadaver in medical education and why respect for body donors is central to professional identity. Then we'll explore the psychological and neuroscientific role of dark humor, including why healthcare workers sometimes rely on it to cope. After that, we'll consider what happens when private coping mechanisms spill into public spaces and social media. Finally, we'll discuss what this incident reveals about medical professionalism, public trust, and the responsibilities that come with the privilege of becoming a doctor. Because this is about more than comedy, it is about dignity, empathy, and the kind of doctors and society we are becoming. Let's begin with the cadaver. In medical education, the cadaver is not an object. It is not a prop. It is not something to be treated casually. It is the first teacher a doctor ever has. Before a medical student touches a living patient, they learn from someone who donated their body after death. That person had a life, a family, a name, a story, dreams, fears, relationships. And at the end of life, they, or their family, chose to offer their body as a source of learning. That act takes extraordinary generosity. Body donation is not just a scientific contribution, it is a moral gift. And the student standing in the anatomy hall is not only learning muscles, nerves, vessels, and organs, they are learning humility, they are learning mortality, they are learning that medicine begins with respect. That is why so many doctors reacted so strongly. Not because doctors have no sense of humor. They do. Often, very dark humor. Hospitals are emotionally intense places. Emergency rooms, intensive care units, trauma bays, cancer wards, operating theaters, mortuaries. Doctors witness things most people never see: death, suffering, fear, uncertainty, human vulnerability, every single day. Because of that, healthcare professionals often develop a very particular relationship with humor. Researchers have studied this extensively. Dark humor, also known as gallows humor, serves several psychological purposes. It can lower anxiety, it can build social bonds, it can help people process emotionally difficult experiences, it can provide temporary relief from overwhelming stress. In neuroscience, humor activates reward circuits involving dopamine. It briefly reduces emotional distress. It helps the brain reframe a threatening situation in a less painful way. In high-stress professions like medicine, the military, emergency response, and law enforcement, dark humor is surprisingly common. But here's the crucial distinction: humor can either protect empathy or erode it. Humor can help professionals cope while still honoring human dignity, or it can become a way of becoming emotionally detached. And when detachment goes too far, something dangerous happens. The patient becomes a case, the person becomes an object, the donor becomes a specimen. The human story disappears. Medicine becomes technical but no longer humane. That is exactly why professionalism matters. Professionalism is not just about following rules, it is about preserving humanity in environments where repeated exposure to suffering can slowly wear it down. Now let's turn to something even more interesting. Why does social media today seem to reward increasingly shocking humor? To understand that, we need to understand how the brain evolved. The human brain is wired to notice novelty, unexpected information, social conflict, controversy, surprise. In the past, paying attention to unusual events helped us survive. Today, social media platforms take advantage of that same mechanism. The more shocking something is, the more attention it gets. The more attention it gets, the more it spreads. This creates what psychologists call the attention economy. The currency is not wisdom, it is engagement. Likes, views, comments, shares, outrage. The algorithm does not care whether people admire something or hate it, it only tracks attention. As a result, many people, especially younger users who have grown up entirely in digital spaces, absorb an unspoken lesson. The more extreme the statement, the greater the visibility. The greater the visibility, the greater the social reward. That creates a dangerous loop. Humor gradually shifts from wit to shock value. Subtlety fades. Nuance fades. Empathy can fade too. And what remains is attention. This brings us to an important question. Is this a problem unique to Generation Z? I don't think so. Every generation criticizes the next one. The Romans complained about young people. The Victorians complained about young people. The baby boomers complained about young people. And now many people complain about Gen Z. But the reality is more complicated. And this is not really about intelligence. There is no evidence that an entire generation lacks intelligence. In fact, many members of Gen Z are highly informed, technologically skilled, socially aware, and globally connected. The real issue may be something else. Exposure. For the first time in history, young brains are exposed to a non-stop stream of information. Wars, disasters, political conflict, celebrity scandals, tragedies, humor, violence, memes, all arriving at once. The nervous system evolved for villages, not endless content streams. When the brain becomes overloaded, emotional desensitization can happen, not because people are bad, but because the brain is trying to protect itself. The problem is that emotional protection can turn into emotional distance, and emotional distance can weaken empathy. This matters especially in medicine. Medicine is not just a science, it is a moral profession. Society gives doctors extraordinary privileges. Patients share secrets. They allow physical examination. They consent to surgery. They place their lives in the hands of strangers in white coats. That trust exists because society believes doctors have both competence and character. Technical knowledge alone is not enough. A brilliant surgeon without empathy can still damage trust. A knowledgeable physician without respect can still cause harm. Medicine requires something deeper. Character, humility, integrity, respect, compassion. These are not optional extras. They are essential clinical qualities. One of the most powerful rituals in medical education is the donor memorial ceremony. Many medical schools around the world hold ceremonies to honor body donors. Students write letters. Families attend. Stories are shared. Moments of silence are observed. Why? Because medical educators understand something important. Anatomy is not only about learning structures, it is about learning gratitude. The cadaver teaches anatomy, but the donor teaches humanity, and that lesson may be even more important. Now let's talk about responsibility. Whenever incidents like this happen, society often looks for a single villain, one person to blame, one person to punish, one simple answer. But reality is rarely that simple. The student has responsibility, the institution has responsibility, the host has responsibility, the audience has responsibility, the platform has responsibility, and society itself has responsibility. The student chose the words. The host created the setting. The audience gave it attention. The platform amplified it. Society created the incentives. That doesn't remove personal accountability, but it reminds us that behavior happens within systems. If we want fewer incidents like this in the future, we need to improve the system, not just punish individuals. So what should happen after such an event? First, accountability. Professional standards matter. Second, education. Ethics should not just be memorized, it should be understood. Third, reflection. Growth requires self-awareness. Fourth, mentorship. Young professionals need strong role models. Fifth, restoration. The goal should not be punishment alone, the goal should be learning. Because if an apologetic student truly understands why the behavior was wrong, society gains more from education than destruction. A mistake should become a lesson, not a permanent identity. Perhaps the deepest question is this: are there limits to comedy? Some people believe everything should be fair game. Others think certain topics should never be joked about. The truth may lie somewhere in between. Humor can absolutely address difficult subjects: death, illness, politics, religion, relationships, even tragedy. But the ethical question is always there. Who is being targeted? Who is being protected? Who is being diminished? And who holds the power? Good comedy often challenges power. Bad comedy often exploits vulnerability. That difference matters. Ultimately, this controversy is not about one student. It is about a culture trying to balance freedom and responsibility, expression and dignity, humor and humanity, technology and ethics, medicine and morality. The challenge facing modern society is not whether we can say something. The challenge is whether we should, because wisdom begins where impulse ends, and professionalism begins where self-restraint starts. As doctors, students, teachers, and citizens, we must remember something deeply important. The people who donate their bodies to science never meet the students they teach. They never see the surgeons they help train. They never witness the lives that may later be saved because of their gift. They simply trust. Trust that they will be treated with dignity. Trust that their final act of generosity will be respected. Trust that medicine remains worthy of that sacrifice. That trust should never be taken lightly. I'm Dr. Yende. This is OXYZEN Health Intelligence. And before I leave you with a question, in a world driven by likes, views, algorithms, and viral moments, How do we preserve dignity? Where should the line between humor and respect be drawn? And can modern society learn to balance freedom of expression with responsibility toward those who can no longer speak for themselves? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, a great doctor is not defined only by what they know. A great doctor is defined by how they treat the living and how they honor the dead. See you again next time.